Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. My name is Herbie. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pow Go On. It is 5:42 a.m. on another Truth Hurts Day. It is September 23rd, 2021. Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. Today is a Truth Hurts Day, where we will be talking about, of course, connecting with our sense of self. But today, specifically, the title of today's episode is Generation Victims, as in our generation of individuals lacking the sense of self in order to take control of their lives again. In order to feel that they are in control again, we have lost touch with that. We have lost touch with, if you would join me, please, in pretending that there's a candle in front of your lips. Like a lit candle. A lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out. I want you to join me in imagining that part of the human design is that in their mind's eye, in each individual's mind's eye, they hold a candle in front of their mouth lips that is just flickering there. That they're trying to not put out as they leave their swallowing muscles alone. And I challenge you today to place into your awareness that in the mind's eye of every human, the tip of their tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Again, that is the tip of their tongue, say it with me, even if it's just in your head, wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And what are we doing here? What are we doing here as we're pretending there's a candle that we're just trying to not put out and observing our sense of self? Well, in this reality, in this simulation, if this is a simulation that we live in, where we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with every breath we take, we want to hold our controller properly today, this morning, where we are supercharging our morning, where we are feeling superhuman in that window to this godlike experience that you are. Where we are feeling superhuman in that vessel that you are. Where we are feeling better all the time, objectively. How is that even possible? With the help of your only no-nonsense podcast brought to you through the Best Feeling Network, of course. And the help of your only body baby from the inside out. So as we are in this reality, or this simulation in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath, we are all holding our controller properly together today. Really grasping hands with one another in our awareness. How do we do that? By placing our awareness on the same things, as in on the same subject, Herbie? As in on the same movie? As in let's talk about where we are? As in let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons? As in let's talk about Digimon? Let's talk about the same thing? Let's have the same thing in our awareness? Even closer to the center, the same thing in our awareness, as in even the way we are perceiving of feeling our own bodies. Why does that matter? Because if we are like a tuning fork to what is happening around us, if we are all tuned to the same way, might our conversations be more copacetic? Might we understand each other better as we are all tuned in to the same frequencies at the same time? Kind of like if you're eating a food and you draw attention to a specific salty nature of that food. Yes, you're tasting all those different flavors all at the same time, but we are able to isolate our awareness onto certain parts of it, and it's valuable so we can begin communicating what it is about that food that we like so much, so that we can continue recreating it, so that we can find more of it, so that we can share it, so that we can talk about it, so that we can get excited for it. All sorts of benefits. Makes you appreciate it even more, adding more language to it. Why do you think poets write? We are here on another Truth Hurts Day, stretching our self-awareness every morning like a muscle on Palgo On. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Waking your worlds up physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. We'll be talking about how we can get reconnected with ourselves today so that we can feel so strong, so that nothing feels like it is happening to us, but we feel like we are happening to it. A little tweak to this victimhood generation that we live in. As in this generation that feels like things are happening to us and we have no control over it, aka victims. We'll be right back. You ADHD having, disassociative, toxic shaming, love bombing, beautiful person, you. We'll be right back. Please pretend that there is a candle in the mind's eye of everyone around you, whether you are alone, or whether you are on the phone, or whether you are at home, or whether you are at work. Where are you right now? Are you walking down the street, or are you sitting pretty still? Are you feeling filled with life, or are you feeling down and out? Are you feeling exuberant and triumphant? Or are you feeling a need to recover? Aren't we all feeling needs at all times? Whether those be social needs, wellness needs, financial needs, companionship needs, family needs. Aren't we all always playing to some kind of needs game? When you scratch your arm, don't you need to scratch your arm? Aren't you satisfying a need as it's itchy? And then all the way over to creating a family, or all the way over to having responsibility to please your mother in your life as you get older, or your father. Not all needs may be equal, but we are all always being drawn this way, drawn that way by needs. Some starting on the outside, eventually making their way on our inside world, where all of our needs are created from our inside world, as in our consciousness, our unconscious consciousness, our inner selves, the design before us. The fact that when you think about the back 1/3 of your tongue being vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down, and just observe your sense of self. That you can have a sense of self in which you can observe to see if it changes. That you have a sense of self to have a relationship with at all. Now, what do you mean by a relationship, Herbie? As in you buy yourself flowers? As you're buying yourself chocolates? You're giving yourself a back rub? As in a relationship with yourself. As in, over time you get to know. How changes and how differences end up affecting the entire thing. And in order for you to have a relationship, you must have something to compare it to, as in an earlier part of that relationship, so you can see how the relationship has grown, because there is infinite amount of information to get, not just from seeing how a relationship is, but how a relationship has changed over time. In fact, that might be the most important thing about a relationship, is seeing how it changes over time. As that direction in which it changes, the velocity in which it changes, and the pattern in which it changes, your relationship with whatever it might be describes the relationship sometimes more than those two things individually. So when we get to feel our bodies, and we get to feel a baseline, and we get to feel for ourselves whether or not it feels better or worse, whether the quality feels better or worse, whether the alignment feels more clear or more blurry, all distinguished by our relationship with our body, so that we can see how it is different over time when different events occur. For example, when we pretend that there is a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out, and in front of everybody's lips, that in their minds they are individually trying to not put out as well. And we observe our sense of self as we are trying to not think about exhaling or inhaling. You're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. You're just thinking about this candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Does that feel any different for you? And if it does, or even if it doesn't, are we not now creating a stronger relationship with ourselves as we are able to compare? Does our body change? Does our sense of self change, expand, shrink, change in shape, change in direction? Does our sense of self change when we pretend there's a candle in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out? We're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. And we're just leaving our swallowing muscles alone as observing a sense of self. And if nothing changes, then we certainly still have created a stronger relationship, so long as we are repeating and observing, intentionally observing. Because now, if nothing changed, now you know that nothing changes when you do implement these specific regimens. The same way that you begin to know your father's favorite place in the house, or your mother's favorite place in the house, or perhaps your own favorite place in the house, perhaps your best friend's favorite place in their house that they like to hang out at. As you begin to learn that, as your relationship like that grows, your relationship with yourself grows. When we observe, possibly nothing happens at all when you implement the candle regiment. Possibly nothing happens at this moment in time. Is that not also creating a relationship, like finding out that your best friend does not like this specific room at this time, or like this specific part of the house at this time? And you might know that about them. And so now we might know that about ourselves. And so that means we might know that about the world. Getting a relationship with ourselves again as we pretend that there's a candle in front of not just ours, but the entire world. Everybody has a candle in front of their lips now that they're trying to not put out in their mind's eye. They're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling as they go to work. They're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling as they go to sleep. They're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling as they cross that street. They are just pretending there's a candle in front of their lips. They're trying to not put out. And the tip of their tongue always wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Your first podcast in 3D. Whoa. Are we please pretending that there's a candle? Not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. As you take a sip of that coffee, as you take a drink of that water, as you take a bite of that food. Don't think about exhaling or inhaling. As you allow me into the symphony of your life, always allow all these sounds to blend into the symphony of your life. Stay present in the wonderful body of yours. As we are leaving our swallowing muscles alone, remembering the tip of our tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, and observing our sense of self. Whether you're looking down or looking up, whether you are feeling your body or looking at another, or feeling another. I implore you, I challenge you today to create a strong relationship with yourself by pretending there's a candle in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out. And simply just observe your sense of self. As your body chooses to align or gives itself permission to align, or perhaps you feel a resistance towards aligning. as we will also get to know ourselves and also get to know ourselves' dislikes. Perhaps there's a resistance towards aligning right now. Why might that be? We might not need to know the answer right now, as this is about discovery and not about performance. We might find the answer later. But why might it be that we have resistance towards aligning? Sometimes asking the question is enough, as we pretend there's a candle in front of everybody's lips. They're trying to not put out and watch our bodies choose or deny alignment. Don't need to judge it, just name it. Don't need to blame it. Generation victims. Phobias. Normatives. Our world is changing before our very eyes. Disorders, syndromes. Our world is changing before our very eyes. Everything's a disorder, everything's an ism, everything's a phobia, everything's normative, which means that there is no normal, right? There's just normative things. Things that society has chosen to be normative. And now it inflicts upon all of us and we can't do anything about it. These disorders inflicted upon us and now we can't do nothing about it. These illnesses, these phobias thrust upon us and so we can't do nothing about it. No point in talking no more to each other, because why? Because you can't do nothing about it. No point in introspecting, no point in trying to see if you can do anything about it yourself. No point in mustering the human experience, the energy from yourself to overcome. No point in describing any of the parts of the human experience, the human condition, as parts of the human condition in which are meant to be overcome and strengthened through. No conversation about that, because everything is a disorder, everything's an illness, everything's a phobia, everything is a disorder, everything's a syndrome. Detaching us from responsibility, from being able to do, affect it, or handle it, to do it ourselves, or that it might be self-inflicted. We put distance between ourselves and what we are afraid of in the world right now. What are we most afraid of in the world right now? You would think it would be war. You would think it'd be money, not having money. You would think we are most afraid of death right now. But we are most afraid of abandonment right now. We are most afraid of being alone right now. We are most afraid of not being accepted right now. More than death, as lack of acceptance implies death. So we are afraid of the more pointed version of it right now, which is lack of acceptance. On the Truth Hurts days, today, September 23rd, 2021, as we're pretending that there's a candle in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out, to leave our swallowing muscles alone, and remembering that the tip of our tongues always want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. We're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling. We're just thinking about the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. generation victims, as in generation lacking connection with the self, generation lacking relationship with the self, in order to be able to flush out all negative inside sufferings of our mind, emotions, of ourselves. So when we could not flush these feelings out of ourselves, when we were heartbroken, when we felt disappointed by our parents, when we felt abandoned by our parents, when we felt abandoned by the world, when we felt like we could not handle being in our own body because the rejection that we felt from the world was too much and we had no control over it. In those times, we could not flush out those negative feelings within our spirit. Our body, our own body, could not do it. Our own body could not flush out what it knows it wants to get rid of. It could not stop being heartbroken. It could not stop falling in love with this girl. It could not stop being in love with his family. It could not stop being in love with the world despite being rejected by all those things. Our body could not get rid of that feeling. So screw this body, right? We said screw this body. I'm not going to pay attention to the body. I'm going to pay attention to what makes me feel happy in it. Candy, movies, sex, drugs, food. I'm going to become obsessed with all the things that make the suffering go away. But because the body itself could not do what I know it was supposed to do by having a relationship with itself, by having a relationship with God, not this sky God thing, but this design within you that allows you to flush out those negative feelings. Without having a relationship with it, we could not flush out those feelings. So what did we say to this body? Oh, you're worthless then. I'm not going to pay attention to you no more because you can't do what I know you're supposed to do. Our relationship with ourselves, which is where this God thing relies, or where this God thing lies, is within ourselves, as in within our relationship with knowing that the tip of our tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, and then observing how that affects our spirit. It lies in ourselves, but we said, screw the self, because it couldn't do it before. We couldn't wash out those feelings before. We destroyed our relationship with ourselves to overcome. Therefore, everything is happening to us. We cannot overcome nothing. We are generation victims. We'll be right back. Please remember that the tip of a tongue wants to be anchored to the back, the bottom, front. We'll be right back. And pal, go on. Some pills are just so hard to swallow. Some pills are just so hard to swallow. But we can ease the process By pretending that there's a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out? Is it by doing anything that's gonna stop you from doing what you want to do today? No. But we can ease the process by making sure that our connection with ourselves at all times is as strong as it can be. Why do you need the connection with yourself to be as strong as it can be? Why can't I focus on this anime? Why can't I focus on this game? Why can't I focus on my homework? Why can't I focus on the way this drink tastes? Why can't I focus on the way that I am affecting this person over there? Pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And remember that the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth as you do so. Why? Am I telling you what to do out there? Hell no. But rather orienting yourself to looking at the canvas properly. Why do you want to look at yourself the entire time? Why do you want to observe yourself the entire time? So that we can see how it's affecting ourselves. And we don't want to do that because we don't like looking at ourselves. However, if we look at ourselves in the most honest, most baseline way as possible, as much as we can throughout life, are we not getting a stronger relationship with ourselves at the time? So are we not feeling more authentic, more in the moment at the time, as we are able to dissect what is us and what is a version of us that is happening out of fear? What is a version of us that is happening out of love? And then what is a version of us that is compromising out of fear? Why did I compromise out of fear? Why did I compromise something that I really, really wanted out of fear? Why might we might not want to look at that? Well, doesn't that kind of suck to know that we compromised out of fear? But why did we do that? Simply because, like a toxic cycle, we had no sense of self. We had no relationship with the self, so we had no hope of beginning to even understand the self. By the time you meet two seemingly similar situations and made your body and made your experience feel totally different despite looking so similar, by the time that happens, we have no clue what made it feel different, for we had no idea what the baseline was at all. So when the pieces move, how are we supposed to put the pieces back together? How are we supposed to see if it was the same reasons for the pieces moving, or if there were totally different reasons for the pieces moving, and now we're putting the pieces back differently? How do we improve this relationship with ourselves? Always observing the sense of self. You thought I was going to say the candle. As we are always remembering, the tip of our tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, simply shifting our awareness around. We are not doing nothing here on Palgawan, simply shifting our awareness around and observing our sense of self as it aligns or chooses to not align, as it brings about ease or as it brings about pain. As we know, pain is our best friend, as it alerts us to how to rebalance ourselves to feel at ease, to achieve more freedom in our lives again. Pain is not the enemy, but the friend. How can pain be the friend? Well, we must know how to get to a baseline. We must know how to flush the pain. We must know how to rebalance for the pain. Otherwise, the pain stays an enemy forever, and you feel like you can't do anything about it. Generation victims. How do we get over this? We pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips, and we're trying to not put out. And remember to always leave the swallowing muscles alone, as the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And we are observing always our sense of self. Generation victims. Generation victims. Generation people believing that if they sit still, do nice, act nice, that they will get what they want in life. And also, if they sit still, act nice, and look nice, that nothing bad will happen to them in life. That good things and bad things happen to you in life. And if you want good things, you must not try to be too active a part in being part of the bad things. Well, guess what, generation victims? To get the good things, you must act, you must do. But the cool thing is that once you start doing, all the good things end up coming to you. So if we become self-aware and improve our relationship with ourselves, not using some vapid language like, hey, do 5 nice things for yourself, but something rather specific. Let's place our awareness on the same things. Let's hold our controller properly in this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. Let's hold that controller properly by remembering that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. As we are observing our sense of self and stretching our self-awareness, where are you? How art thou? Please allow all of these words to enter in one ear and out the other, as we are simply stretching our self-awareness every morning, every weekday morning, like a muscle. We felt like we had no control over these things, so we identified phobias, we identified normatives, we identified social constructs, we identified disorders, illnesses, syndromes. Why? Fear of things we felt we had no control over, but always felt like they had control over us. The way our human spirit reacts. As we are so afraid of being unable to understand why our human spirit might react to certain things, why people's human spirits might react to certain things, why people's attitudes changes about certain things. How do we understand how the world is reacting to all those different stimuli in the world? Phobias, illnesses, syndromes, disorders. And why all of those things happening? Because we don't have the sense of self? Possibly. As in, when you don't have a relationship with a sense of self, as we will be addressing comments and concerns towards the end of the show. Appreciate you, DJ Loompa. As we are building our relationship with ourselves a little bit closer, to be able to flush out negative feelings, for example, remembering that the tip of our tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And the back 1/3 of our tongues are vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down. And don't just take my word for it, just see how it feels for you. Allow all of these words to go in one ear and out the other. As we build this relationship with ourselves, as we build a relationship with this body of ours, this design of ours, this you before you. As in, did we invent the back 1/3 of our tongue being vertical? Did we invent the tip of our tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? No. But how does it feel for you? As we are pretending that there's a candle in front of every person's lips today, that in their mind's eye, in their awareness, there is a lit candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. They're not thinking about inhaling. They're not thinking about exhaling. There's just a candle in front of their lips and all of our lips that we are trying to not put out. The tip of our tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. As we remember that the back 1/3 of our tongues are vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Say it with me, even if it's just in your head. The back 1/3 of my tongue is vertical, Up and down, up and down. Say it with me. Up and down, up and down. While the tip of our tongues wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, as with a relationship with ourselves, are we not able to flush out any suffering from the inside world, the emotional world, the mental world, the spiritual world? Are we not able to balance out to get to a baseline again? Now, why is it important to get to a baseline again and have a reliable connection to being able to baseline again? Well, without a reliable relationship with ourselves, without a reliable way to baseline ourselves again, doesn't everything feel like it's happening to us and we have no control over it? Oh, we're heartbroken? Well, sucks. Oh, we have low self-esteem? Well, sucks. Oh, we have body dysmorphia? Sucks. We have self-confidence issues? Sucks. We're lazy? Sucks. We're attracted to things that we know are bad for us? Well, sucks. That's a disorder now. It's an illness. You have no control over that. It's happening to you. Sucks. Oh, that person's richer than you? Well, life's happening to you. Sucks. You have no control over this inner suffering to go towards what you want. Sucks. Why? No relationship with the self. No confidence that the self has a reliable way to feel better. Why does it need to just feel better? I want money, Herbie. I don't want to just feel better. I want a good relationship, Herbie. I don't want to feel just better. I want all the riches, Herbie. I want a great job, Herbie. I want a great family, Herbie. I don't want to feel just better. When you feel good, you think good. And when you think good, you do good. The heartbreak in your life. Is it the heartbreak that hurts you so bad, or is it what stops you from what it stops you from doing because it drains your energy because you cannot flush yourself of this inner suffering? How do we flush ourselves of this inner suffering? Let's get to know ourselves, baby. As ourselves, our design already has the mechanisms that it needs already to flush out those feelings, those inner sufferings already. They called it God in the years previous to us. I guess we'll still call it God because it's an easy way there, but we don't mean the sky God, but rather your inner body, your design before you, your design that you did not create that allows you to deal with all inner suffering, which then allows you to then continue with your life and kick ass and make yourself proud. We'll be right back after this short break, where we will enter the last quarter of the show and address any comments, concerns, and do a couple shout outs and announcements. We'll be right back on Pago One. Have you felt the fronts of your shins today? Have the fronts of your shins been in your awareness today? How art thou feeling today? Where are you today? Are you outside today? Are you feeding the baby today? Are you burping the baby today? Are you birthing the baby today? Are you pregnant with the baby today? How are you? Are you ready to supercharge your day in the most calmest way? Are you ready to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips? Are you remembering to remember that the tip of your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? I want to welcome you back to the last segment of today's show. It is 6:29 a.m. We still got 10 more minutes of the show, though. Generation victims. How do you become a victim? How do you act like a victim? By placing the responsibility of the way your life is going in anyone else's but yourself. Now, might it be true that other people are affecting your lives? Yes. The driver down the road is affecting your life because you are unable to pass them up. The person at the cash register is affecting your life because the way that they're acting is affecting your life. True. The big businesses are affecting your life because they are indeed involved with what eventually makes it its way into your life and how you spend your money in your life. True. All these things are affecting your life. However, when we looked at victimhood, we look more at what we believe we can affect in our lives. Yes, these things will affect our lives, but what can we individually affect in our lives? Should we feel like it is nothing and we have no effect over anything and all things happen to you? That is by definition victimhood mentality, generation victims. Well, how might it feel like you have no effect on anything? Well, if your relationship with yourself is so blurred and marred in which prevents you from actually affecting anything in the outside world because your conflict with your inner self is so strong that it takes up all of your attention, it takes up all of your energy. What happens if we resolve the conflict with the self? What happens if we embolden ourselves to be able to affect the world consistently? What happens if we are able to allow ourselves the confidence of knowing we can affect the world consistently? How do we do that? Reducing the conflict of relationship of ourselves. How do we do that? Getting to know ourselves. How do we do that? Let's know the favorite place of our tongue. Where is the favorite place of the tip of our tongue? Where's the favorite place in the room? The back of the bottom front teeth, baby. Where's his favorite seat in the house? The back of the bottom front teeth, baby. Where does the back 1/3 of the tongue like to be looked at like? Vertical, up and down, up and down. And how does that feel for you? Don't just take my word for it. How does it feel for you to know that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? It doesn't mean it has to stay there, but it wants to be there. And isn't that enough sometimes just to know what it wants to do? As then we can begin to understand everything else that it is doing once we know what it wants to do. And isn't that so true? For all things. We might not understand what it's doing at the time, but once we understand what it wants to do, don't we start to understand what it is doing? The tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Even in moments where it might scare you out of it, you might be looking at someone who makes you feel anxious. Maybe you're afraid of them. Maybe you're in love with them. Maybe you hate them. Whatever it is, they make you forget that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. But no matter what it's doing, no matter whether or not it's afraid, we know that it wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, even if it's afraid to. Even if the back 1/3 of your tongue is afraid to relax and be up and down vertical, it still wants to. Even as we put this candle in front of our lips and in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out. Although there's a candle there, what's more important also is the intention. What do we want? We want to not put it out. And so we want to affect the world, but we feel like we can't. End up feeling like victims because we want to affect the world. We want certain things, but feel blocked out from it. Feel like we cannot attain those things, whether it be confidence, safety, or love. A good job, a good husband, a good wife. Feel like we cannot attain those things. Why do we feel like we cannot attain those things? Because we do not feel like we can affect those things. Why do we feel like we can affect the outcomes of those things? Well, our relationship with ourselves is so blinding that we cannot actually affect anything in the outside world reliably and not consistently, and not in a way that can give us confidence anyway in ourselves, in ourselves to be able to affect the world in a way to get us what we want. So in effect, everything's happening to us. We feel like we have no power. We feel like we have no power because the greatest power of all, which is bursting from within you, which is you, is being stopped also by you. Not by you stopping it consciously, but because of not looking at it consciously, of not intentionally becoming aware of itself, by not intentionally creating a relationship with ourselves, because it was hard to do. Our tongue was so secretive. It never wanted to tell us where it wanted to sit. But the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. It wants to. And the back 1/3 of your tongue wants to be vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Vertical. If you would say it with me, even if it's just in your head, the back 1/3 of my tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Second person, say it with me, even if it's just in your head. The back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. One more time. Say it with me, even if it's just in your head. The back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Say it with me. Up and down, up and down, up and down. As you're leaving those swallowing muscles alone, as you are becoming more acquainted with thyself, as we are holding ourselves in our awareness with locked fingers to understand our relationship with itself. Why are you not outputting the energy right now? Why do you feel that way? Why is it harder to feel that the tip of my tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth right now? Why does the back 1/3 of my tongue feel horizontal instead of as it should be, vertical, up and down, up and down? Why is it that way? And just asking those questions might establish this relationship with the self. To be able to flush out spiritual suffering, confusion, to be able to see the self more clearer, to be able to see the self in your awareness, to be able to baseline so we can even begin understanding the world. As us ourselves are already this complex web of this mess. How could you ever possibly hope to look through it, through all that mess, to understand the world outside? Good luck. No wonder we said illnesses. No wonder we created more disorders, more phobias. No wonder we said more things are social constructs, as we did not have a relationship to be able to even feel what the hell we were even talking about on the inside, let alone be able to help ourselves out of it. Yes, they were all things that were not us. They were all disorders and illnesses because we could not see what we were even feeling, because we had no relationship with the self to begin decoding what all of it meant. No hope to decode what kind of issues abandonment came with and why we continue to perpetuate it within ourselves by ignoring ourselves. How could we see ourselves when no one was telling us that the favorite place of the tip of the tongue wants to be is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? No wonder it was so hard to breathe, not knowing that the breathing pipe was in front of the swallow pipe instead of behind it. Not knowing that the back 1/3 of our tongue wants to be vertical. How could we establish a strong relationship with ourselves to see ourselves as anything but disorders and illnesses and phobias? instead of conditions of the human, which we're able to and designed to overcome from the inside out. Feeling so good from the inside out. I want to thank you. Thank you so much. Always. Thank you. DJ Loompa. Shout out DJ Loompa for coming through earlier and hanging out for a little bit during Twitch. Whether you are coming from Twitch, whether you're coming from YouTube, whether you're coming from D Live, or whether you're streaming us on any of those platforms, I want to thank you so much for coming through, for hanging out, for talking to yourself, for doing nothing but simply stretching our self-awareness together. I want to thank anyone from Twitter, thank anybody from Tumblr, thank anybody from Instagram, TikTok. Thank you guys for coming through. Of course, hope you got something out of this, as we are using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. And feeling so good from the inside out, stretching our self-awareness like a muscle. Are you reading something? Am I reading something and giving my comments on it? Question mark. DJ Lupa asks. DJ Lupa is asking me, what's going on right now? What's going on right now is feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. We are reading some things. There are some things being written here. Mostly just notes. There's no full script, as literally the discovery of the alignment itself. Are we back? I think we're back. Thank you guys. I think we went off. I don't know. Thank you guys for coming through. The timer's still on, so I'm gonna go. Thank you guys for coming through for another Truth Hurts Day. We talking to and being part of and helping generation victims, as we are feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Making sure that you just use that self-awareness in that godlike experience that you are. This window to this godlike experience that you are. You superhuman you. My name is Herbie. Good morning, everybody. And this is absolutely Palgo One. We'll see you tomorrow for a Freedom Friday.